Imagine a flight that seemed perfectly normal, but just a few hours later, it turned into a disaster that shook the entire nation. Air India Flight 171, the name sounds ordinary, but the story behind this flight is no less than a horror film. This crash not only made news but also raised the biggest question in aviation history. What exactly happened? Initially, people thought it was just a technical fault, but as the investigation progressed, shocking secrets began to emerge. Some said it was a mechanical failure, while others believed it was the result of crew negligence. But the real truth is even more horrifying and shocking. Secrets that may never have been officially revealed and may never be. Was there a cover-up behind this accident? Did someone try to hide real evidence? And the biggest question, could the lives of the passengers have been saved if the truth had come out in time? These questions still linger in people's hearts and minds. So friends, today in this video, we'll uncover the dark truths of Air India Flight 171 that have been hidden from the world until now. Be sure to watch the video until the end, because what you're about to hear will shock you. And yes, if you're interested in learning such truths, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. The background and journey of Flight 171, January 22nd, 1966. A day forever etched in the pages of Indian aviation history. At that time, Air India wasn't just an airline, but a symbol of India's pride. It was considered a symbol of the nation's identity and trust. Air India Flight 171's route was very special. The flight took off from Bombay, now Mumbai, and headed first to Delhi, then Karachi, then Tehran, and then Rome, reaching its final destination, London. This was an international route at the time, carrying passengers from many countries. People from different nationalities were on board. Some were on business trips, some were visiting family, and some were traveling abroad for the first time. The plane was a modern and reliable aircraft, considered the safest model at the time. A total of 117 people were on board, including passengers and crew. The crew members were highly experienced. The pilots had an excellent record and extensive experience flying internationally. At that time, Air India's reputation was so high that people trusted it without fear. This was a time when the mere mention of Air India's name would exude pride and confidence. The flight took off from Bombay on time. The weather was clear and passengers were enthusiastic. A few minutes after takeoff, the crew made a general announcement, informing passengers that the journey ahead was completely safe. The initial journey was normal. Passengers chatted, some looked out the window and others relaxed in their seats. The pilot and co-pilot spoke calmly and professionally. Their communication with air traffic control was also normal and everything was proceeding as usual. About an hour and a half later, the flight landed at Karachi Airport, where some passengers disembarked and new passengers boarded. The flight was refueled and the crew once again checked all systems. Everything seemed normal. The flight then began its next leg, heading for Tehran. The journey up to here was extremely calm and trouble-free. The passengers had no idea that everything was about to change in just a few hours. As the flight departed Tehran and was heading towards Europe, the weather suddenly began to change slightly. Dark clouds appeared in the sky and turbulence increased slightly. The pilots immediately informed air traffic control. The control room alerted the pilots that the weather ahead might worsen, but the pilots assured them they could handle the situation. The passengers experienced only slight shaking, and the crew members reassured them that everything was under control. But then something unusual began to occur. A slight panic began to creep into the pilots' conversations. They contacted the control room again and reported experiencing a sudden technical problem. The problem seemed minor at first, but gradually escalated. The pilots tried to control the situation, while the passengers were still unaware of the true danger. According to air traffic control records, the last message received from the flight was that the pilots reported that the plane was having difficulty maintaining altitude and that engine problems were increasing. After this, communication was suddenly lost completely. The silence that followed shook the control room. Everyone wondered what had happened in just a few seconds to make the flight disappear. It's difficult to even imagine the condition of the passengers at that moment. Some may have been praying, some may have been remembering their families, and some may not have even realized they had only a few moments left. The pilots tried to save the flight until the last moment, but the situation was beyond their control. It was this moment that transformed the story of Air India Flight 171 from a simple flight journey into one of history's greatest mysteries. The subsequent investigation into the crash further exacerbated the mystery, but at that time no one knew that this was not just an accident, but the beginning of a deep suspense, which has not been completely solved till date. The moment of the accident in the initial investigation. When Flight 171 took off from Tehran, everything seemed normal. But as it headed towards Europe, the weather suddenly deteriorated. Dark clouds covered the sky, strong winds began to blow, and the plane began to shake slightly. The pilots alerted air traffic control that the weather conditions were not good, but they had everything under control. The passengers felt only mild turbulence, thinking it was a normal occurrence on flights. However, tension began to rise in the pilot's cockpit. A few minutes later, the pilot suddenly sent another message to the control room. The panic in their voices was clearly audible. They reported experiencing some engine trouble, and that the plane's altitude was becoming difficult to control. The control room immediately gave them some emergency instructions, but before they could relay the details, the line suddenly disconnected. That was the last message received from Air India Flight 171. After that, complete silence prevailed. Those in the control room were stunned. Repeated calls were made, but there was no response. It's difficult to imagine the state of the passengers on the flight at that moment. Some may have been praying loudly, some looking at photographs of family members, and some holding their children to their chests. The final few seconds of recording in the black box, later recovered during the investigation, shook everyone. It captured the screams of passengers, the cries of children, and the pilot's voice repeatedly saying, "Mayday! Mayday! Control lost," followed by a loud explosion. The accident occurred near the French Alps. The plane was flying at high altitude and began a rapid descent. After hitting the mountains, it completely disintegrated into pieces. People in nearby villages heard a loud explosion and saw burning debris falling from the sky. Some villagers ran towards the scene, but the scene made them tremble. Debris, broken luggage, and flames were everywhere. As soon as news of the accident spread, rescue teams were immediately dispatched. Police, airport authorities, medical teams, and the fire brigade all arrived at the scene. However, reaching the scene was difficult. The mountains were densely forested, and the route was extremely difficult. Helicopters were used, but due to bad weather, they were unable to operate properly. After several hours of effort, the rescue team reached the scene. The scene was heartbreaking. Debris, passengers' belongings, and scattered traces of human life were scattered everywhere. No one was found alive. The rescue team members worked silently, but with tears in their eyes. They first sealed off the area and began collecting bodies. This work continued for several days as the debris was spread far and wide. As soon as news of the incident reached the media, chaos erupted at the airport. Family members rushed there crying and screaming. Some were asking for the names of their relatives, while others were hoping for a miracle. Airport officials were trying to calm the crowd, but the atmosphere was extremely tense. The initial investigation report stated that the accident was likely caused by bad weather and a technical fault. However, this was only a preliminary estimate. The investigation team did not have complete information at that time. They stated that the real cause would be revealed only after examining the black box and debris. While removing the debris, the rescue team found several unusual items. Some passengers' documents were completely burned, but some belongings were completely intact. This led the investigation team to suspect that bad weather alone could not be the cause of the accident. Furthermore, some witnesses claimed to have seen a strange glow in the sky before the plane crashed. However, this was dismissed as a rumor at the time. This initial investigation made it clear that this accident was not ordinary. There was a deeper story behind it, which the investigation team would have to delve deeper to understand. But at that time, people had only one question in their hearts. Was this just an accident, or was there a larger conspiracy behind it? As the investigation progressed, new mysteries were revealed. This accident shook not only Air India, but the entire global aviation sector. It was clear that uncovering the true cause of this incident would not be easy. The start of the investigation and the unearthing of real evidence. The crash of Air India Flight 171 shook the entire nation. As news spread, pressure mounted on the government to immediately launch an investigation. Air India and the government jointly formed a special investigation committee comprising the country's most experienced aviation experts, pilots, and technical specialists. Their task was to determine the true cause of such a massive accident. In the initial days, the investigation team simply collected debris and passengers' belongings. However, as time passed, many complexities in the case began to emerge. The primary problem was conflicting statements and reports. Initial reports stated that the accident occurred due to bad weather. However, when the condition of the debris and the flight path were examined, many things were inconsistent. Some experts believed it was a case of engine failure, while others believed that the pilots made a wrong decision at the last moment. This led to disagreements within the investigation team itself. Each expert had a different opinion, which repeatedly changed the direction of the investigation. The weather theory was investigated first. The weather that day was indeed bad, but not so bad that it caused complete loss of control. Several pilots stated that if it were solely due to the weather, the pilots would have had time and options to manage the plane. Subsequently, attention turned to the technical fault. Pieces of the engines and parts of the systems were sent to the lab for examination. The team also found no concrete results. The media further complicated the matter. Different news channels and newspapers began presenting their own theories. Some attributed it to a mere technical error, while others claimed it was the result of pilot negligence. Some foreign media outlets even suggested that the accident was a conspiracy. These reports fueled both fear and anger among the public. Questions arose about Air India and the government's refusal to reveal the truth. After nearly 2 weeks of searching, the investigation team found the flight's black box. This black box records every movement of the plane and the conversations between the pilots. When it was opened and the data was heard, the investigation team members were astonished. It contained recordings of the last few minutes in which the pilots repeatedly shouted, "Mayday! Mayday!" Their voices clearly conveyed panic and fear. In the final moments, the pilot said, "The engine is not responding. Altitude is falling. Control lost." And then suddenly everything went silent. The black box data made it clear that the accident was sudden, and the pilots had very little time to react. But it also raised many new questions. If it was simply an engine failure, what caused it? Was it a technical fault, or did someone deliberately tamper with the aircraft systems? The investigation team also examined radar data. It showed that the plane suddenly changed altitude several times during its flight. This typically happens when pilots try to avoid danger, but radar data didn't reveal what the pilots were trying to avoid. The mystery deepened. Meanwhile, witnesses emerged. People in nearby villages claimed to have heard a strange flash and a loud noise in the sky minutes before the plane crashed. Some also reported seeing another small flying object near the plane. Although this was dismissed as a rumor at the time, the witnesses' accounts prompted the investigation team to consider the matter. The examination of the wreckage also revealed several strange features. For example, some parts were completely burned, while the items stored nearby were in perfect condition. A technical expert stated that this was not a typical crash pattern. This further fueled suspicion that the plane's explosion wasn't caused by the impact alone, but that something unusual had already occurred. However, much of this evidence was not released to the public. The government and Air India withheld information, citing concerns that it would cause distress to the passengers' families and could spark international controversy. But this raised even more questions among the public. Why were certain things being hidden? If it was just an accident, what was the problem in revealing the truth? All these events made it clear that the Air India Flight 171 crash was anything but ordinary. There were many layers to it that were yet to be uncovered. The black box and witness accounts proved that something unusual had occurred, but no one had an answer to what this abnormality was. The investigation team now had to dig deeper, because the real truth still lurked in the shadows. Suspicions of a cover-up in passenger stories. As the investigation into Air India Flight 171 progressed, the mystery surrounding the crash deepened. Initially, everyone hoped that the government and airline would work together to uncover the truth. But as crucial evidence emerged, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. Many reports that were initially scheduled to be released were abruptly halted. The media was now only reporting information that had been approved by the government or the airline. This shift raised public suspicion that an attempt was being made to conceal the truth. Rumors began to circulate that some of the black box recordings had been edited. Some members of the investigation team also anonymously stated that they were not allowed to view all the documents. The media was only given information that was considered secure. When journalists asked in-depth questions, they were either brushed off or told to remain silent. It became clear that something was being hidden from the world. News of conflict between the government and Air India also began to emerge. Air India wanted the entire matter to be handled transparently so that the families of the passengers could receive justice. However, the government was under international pressure. The flight carried not only Indian passengers, but also many foreign nationals. If negligence or conspiracy were proven in the deaths of citizens of any country, it could tarnish India's image internationally. Therefore, the government wanted to handle the investigation report with caution and suppress certain details. Many believed that a prominent figure or organization might be involved in the accident. Perhaps someone or organization whose truth, if revealed, would have sparked a major controversy. Therefore, the investigation team's hands were tied. Some witness statements and some evidence were never made public. This angered the public, and people began to question the real truth and why it was being hidden. The tragedy had the deepest impact on the families of the passengers. For those who lost their loved ones, it was not just an accident, but the greatest tragedy of their lives. Many families waited at the airport for days, hoping for a miracle and their loved one's return. But when they were told that no one survived, their world fell apart. Many of the passengers were traveling abroad for the first time. For some, it was a business trip. For others, a chance to visit family. One passenger was traveling to London for his daughter's wedding, and wedding cards and jewelry were found in his bag. Rescue team members were moved by this. Another family traveling together perished in the accident. Hearing such stories left everyone stunned. The pain of these families is unimaginable. Many appealed to the government and Air India for justice. They simply wanted to know how their loved ones died. But when they were given incomplete information, their anger only grew. Some families even went to court, but due to the slow pace of the investigation and the suppression of reports, they received no concrete answers. Personal stories of passengers began to surface in the media. This created an emotional atmosphere across the country. People began to see the accident not just in statistics, but in the stories of real people. A woman's statement became popular, crying, "Just tell me what my husband was saying in his last moments. Was he scared or calm?" This question resonated with everyone who lost a loved one in this accident. This human aspect made the story even more painful. It was no longer just an investigation into an aircraft crash, but a question of human dreams, hopes, and relationships. The more the truth was hidden, the more the family's pain and anger grew. As time passed, it became clear that this accident wasn't just the result of a technical error. There were secrets that were being hidden from the world. And until those secrets were revealed, the wounds of the passengers' families would never heal. Even today, this accident remains an incomplete story in the lives of those families who are searching for answers, and perhaps will always remain so. International angle and mysteries of the final report. As the investigation into Air India, Flight 171 progressed, the case was no longer confined to India. Gradually, it created an international stir as well. The flight carried not only Indian passengers, but also several foreign nationals, including those from countries like Britain, France, and the United States. The governments of these countries immediately requested complete information from India about the accident. Some even sent teams to India to assist in the investigation and ensure justice for their citizens. Meanwhile, various rumors began to circulate in the international media. Some foreign newspapers wrote that the accident might not be merely a technical fault, but part of a larger international conspiracy. Some reports even stated that the flight contained some very important documents and individuals whose deaths could have benefited someone. This further deepened suspicion. Many people questioned whether it was merely an accident or whether a foreign organization was behind it. Intelligence agencies from countries like the United States and Britain were also showing interest in the accident. It is said that documents related to the politics and defense deals of the time were found in the bags of some passengers. However, these documents were never made public. France, where the accident occurred, also played an active role in the investigation. The French team clearly stated that they found evidence of some technical malfunction, but they also acknowledged that the possibility of human negligence or external interference could not be ruled out. This entire matter created diplomatic tension between India and other countries. Some countries privately expressed displeasure with India for not providing them with complete information. India was also under pressure to protect its image internationally. Because of this, many reports were kept confidential. Gradually, the matter became so complicated that it became difficult to determine what was true and what was rumored. After nearly a few months of investigation, the government finally released the final report. This report was eagerly awaited by all, as the passenger families, the media, and international agencies all wanted to know the true cause of the accident. The report stated that the Flight 171 crash was primarily caused by technical failures in bad weather. The pilots tried to save the flight until the last moment, but the situation spiraled out of control. The government also stated that it found no evidence of foul play or external attack. This statement brought relief to many, but raised further questions. Witness statements and anecdotal evidence uncovered during the initial investigation were not mentioned in the report. Only a portion of the black box recordings was made public, further fueling suspicions that the government might have suppressed the true truth. The report clarified that Air India needed to further strengthen its safety standards. Changes were also recommended in the training program for pilots and crew members. However, these statements failed to quell public anger. Families of passengers claimed they were provided with incomplete information. Several families went to court demanding that the entire report be made public. Despite this report, many questions remain unanswered. For example, if it was merely a technical fault, why was there so much panic in the pilots' voices? Why was the strange glow seen by witnesses in the sky not mentioned? And most importantly, if everything was so clear, why did the government keep so many documents and evidence secret? These questions have made the case even more mysterious. Over time, the accident has been recorded in the pages of history, but its truth remains shrouded in mystery. Some experts believe that the truth may never be revealed, as it could be linked to many big names and organizations. Even today, the mention of Air India Flight 171 evokes both fear and curiosity in people. This is not just the story of a plane crash, but also the story of the politics, international relations, and hidden secrets of that era. This accident reminds us that sometimes the truth is not fully visible, even when it is right in front of us. And perhaps this is why, even after so many years, this case remains a mystery. Social media and public reaction, grand recaps, and suspense build up. The Air India Flight 171 crash may be decades old, but it remains fresh in people's hearts and minds. In the age of the internet and social media, new discussions about the accident continue. Numerous documentaries and analysis videos are available on YouTube, offering various theories. Some attribute it to a technical malfunction, while others believe it was part of a larger conspiracy. Hashtags like #AirIndia171 frequently trend on Twitter, where people share their thoughts and questions. Reddit has an entire community where users discuss every small and large piece of evidence and theory related to the crash. These discussions have led to a variety of stories. Some believe that there was a special passenger on Flight 171 whose death benefited someone. Others say the plane's systems were deliberately tampered with. Meanwhile, some people rely on witnesses who claim to have seen a strange glow before the plane fell from the sky. While many of these theories lack concrete evidence, they fuel public curiosity. Families of the passengers also share their feelings on social media. Their posts often go viral, describing how the accident changed their lives forever. Seeing their pain, people are moved and demand the government reveal the truth. Despite the passage of time, pressure continues to mount on the government to release the full report of the case. Public anger and curiosity are equal parts intense. Some distrust the government and Air India and believe the real truth is still being concealed. Others, however, believe the technical reasons are valid and believe the accident was simply an unfortunate incident. But regardless of which side people support, everyone has one desire: that the real truth be revealed someday. Now is the time to revisit this entire story. Initially, we see a normal flight heading towards its destination. Passengers are filled with smiles, the pilots are confident, and Air India is proud. Then suddenly the weather deteriorates, the engine malfunctions, and the pilots lose control. The final message from the control room is, "Mayday, Mayday, control lost," and then everything falls silent. Then the screen shows the struggle of the rescue team, debris scattered across the mountains, weeping families, and the media's uproar. Initial reports describe it as a simple accident, but as the investigation progresses, new secrets are revealed. Black box recordings, witness statements, and strange evidence further complicate the story. Then comes the turning point where many reports are suppressed and only partial information is given to the media. The conflict between the government and Air India escalates. Some say it was just a technical fault, while others believe it was a conspiracy by a foreign agency. International agencies also show interest in the case, but the real truth is never fully revealed. Eventually, the government releases a final report stating that the accident was the result of bad weather and a technical malfunction. But the public finds this answer incomplete. Suspenseful music swells in the background. A fast-paced montage plays on the screen. Images of passengers, pieces of the broken engine, the chaos of the control room, and flashing media cameras. Amid all this, a voiceover resonates. So many years have passed, but the questions remain. Was it just an accident or part of a deeper conspiracy? And if it was an accident, why was the real evidence hidden from the world? Perhaps this accident will never be fully solved. This line leaves a deep sense of suspense in the audience's mind, compelling them to reflect on the case and form their own opinions. This is the end not just of the story, but of a mystery that still lurks in the shadows, and perhaps will never be fully revealed. Now that you've heard the full story of Air India Flight 171, many questions must be swirling in your mind. Despite so much evidence, witness statements, and investigation reports, why hasn't this case been completely solved? This tragedy claimed 117 lives, but their families still haven't received the full truth. Imagine, even after so many years, we still haven't been able to determine whether it was just a routine accident or part of a larger conspiracy. So, viewers, we want to ask you two important questions. First, do you think this accident was simply caused by a technical fault in bad weather? Or was there a deeper and more sinister conspiracy behind it? And second, do you think the government and Air India hid the real truth from us? Were some things deliberately kept from the world? The answers to these questions may never be officially revealed, but your opinions are crucial. Please leave your thoughts and answers in the comments section. Your theory may bring new insights to another viewer. Discussions like these only bring us closer to the truth. And if you found this video informative and want to see more stories about mysterious accidents and truth-seeking, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, press the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, because the story you just watched is just the beginning. The real truth still lies hidden somewhere, buried in dust and shadows. This accident isn't just the story of a flight crash, but it symbolizes the questions that still linger in the air. Many experts and witnesses believe that if the right evidence comes to light at the right time, this case could be completely resolved. The closing line, the story of Air India, Flight 171 doesn't end here. The real truth still lies hidden somewhere. This line suggests that this mystery is still unresolved. Perhaps new evidence will emerge in the future, or a witness will come forward to provide shocking information. The teaser for the next video will show you evidence no one has ever seen before. This teaser is accompanied by flashes of old documents, glimpses of a black box, and mysterious photographs on the screen. A deep, suspenseful melody plays in the background, setting the audience's heart racing. This ending leaves the audience with a sense of an unfinished story and compels them to wait for the next video. The video ends on a mysterious note, but leaves viewers with many questions and theories. This is the moment when the story leaves the video and remains etched in their minds forever.